Eminem is definitely the most famous rapper of all time, from being known as a battle rapper to being recognized as one of the greatest rappers alive. Today we're going to skip back to 1999 and follow his career from the start in which I call the Slim Shady years. In 1997, a young Marshall flew to Los Angeles for the Rap Olympics to win a prize of $500, but unfortunately he lost to rapper otherwise. After the show, a guy asked for Eminem's CD and Eminem just tossed it to him. It was his latest piece of work, which was called the Slim Shady EP, and he gave it to him thinking nothing of it. The guy turned out to be an intern at Interscope who later ended up giving the CD to label executive Levine, who later gave it to Dr. Dre. Dre instantly loved Eminem's piece of work, and he asked for Marshall to fly out to LA. During the visit, he and Dr. Dre began working on his first major studio album, the Slim Shady LP. January 1999, the world didn't know what they were getting into just yet, until the song My Name Is was released, which brought Eminem into mainstream popularity. Then on February 23rd, 1999, the Slim Shady LP was released, which was a critical and commercial success. The Slim Shady LP featured comedic songs and a bit of violence, but it was more cartoon-like. The album was primarily used for entertainment value. The album sold over 1 million copies in the United States within 1 year. After the release of the Slim Shady LP, Eminem became the face of controversy due to his lyrics and his songs in the Slim Shady LP. He did a few concerts and featured on Dr. Dre's album 2001. Following the release of the Slim Shady LP, Eminem began crafting his next masterpiece, the Marshall Mathers LP. At this time, people were thinking that Eminem was going to be another Vanilla Ice, just coming and going. But he released his next big hit, which ended up becoming the real Slim Shady. Here's the fun fact: the real Slim Shady almost didn't exist, but it ended up happening due to Interscope wanting another My Name Is type single, and it was born. The Marshall Mathers LP was released on May 23rd, 2000, and it sold over 1.7 million in the first week. It featured hit singles such as The Real Slim Shady, The Way I Am, and Stan. The theme of the album was a bit more personal compared to the Slim Shady LP. Here he talks about more darker scenarios, such as, obsessive fans, his fantasies, and about him killing his then wife, his life in general. It was a critical and commercial success. During this time, his next big project began development, and 2 decades later is just as fresh and as watchable. 8 Mile was the next big project for Eminem, aside from the Eminem Show. In fall 2001, production of 8 Mile began in Detroit. The production was grueling, and it caused Eminem to develop insomnia, which made it difficult for him to sleep at night. He began taking sleeping pills to get a good night's sleep, which ended up becoming a drug addiction, which later took a toll on him and his career. The album was released in November 2002. If we rewind to several months before, you would note the release of the biggest rap album worldwide, which features hits like Without Me, Clean Out My Closet, and Sing for the Moment. The Eminem Show sold over 1.3 million in the first week. This album featured many themes of his personal life, comedic songs, and fame. It was critically and commercially successful, and it definitely solidified him as a superstar. But at this point, we were yet to see longevity, especially due to his image. Like, how long would it take until Eminem to be taken down from the top? Maybe what happened next will tell us. Production on the next Eminem album began in 2003, but some songs ended up being leaked, which caused Eminem to rewrite and record new songs, which were of poor quality, which was noted by fans and critics. By this time, his pill popping took a huge toll on him, and he was slurring on 74% of this album. The album had 2 goofy or near unlistenable songs on there. The album ended up becoming Encore, which wasn't the encore anyone wanted to see. The album was still a massive success, selling over 700K in the span of 4 days, and selling over 1 million a week. It seemed at this time, Eminem's time at the top spot was coming to an end when Kanye made his debut that year with The College Dropout, and the slow rise of Lil Wayne was beginning around 2004-2005. Encore was intended to be the beginning of an extended hiatus for Eminem, but that wasn't the case. The next year, he ended up releasing Curtain Call, which was intended to be the final project. And during this time, the drugs continued to affect Eminem, and he gained a little bit of weight. Prior to the release of Curtain Call, Eminem turned to rehab, which he was in for a while, and in those months that followed, many eventful things in his life. Before we get to Relapse, the album, let's talk about a tragic 2006 Eminem had faced. But before that, we got to talk about him and Kim reconciling. So in late 2005, Eminem and Kim reconciled, and they began another relationship. He got married in January of 2006, and unfortunately, the relationship ended in April 2006. During that time, too, Eminem lost his friend Proof, and Proof passed away from a shooting in a Detroit club, and that brought Eminem into a deep depression, and that was seeing Eminem at his lowest point. His weight ended up going over 200 pounds, and he became unrecognizable to his fans, and he relapsed, literally. Eminem kept struggling with all of these factors for the rest of 2006 and 2007. After a horrible 2007, Eminem ended off the year in the hospital where he suffered an overdose from methadone. The overdose was nearly fatal. According to Eminem himself, he was 2 hours away from leaving the earth. After the overdose, he saw himself falling back into the same hole, and he stopped himself for real this time and asked music legend Elton John for help since he suffered from addiction himself at one point. And Eminem had been sober since April 20th, 2008. After he got clean, Eminem went to make music, and that's when production on Relapse began. Relapse was released on May 15th, 2009. It wasn't showing much love from critics and some fans. However, it sold 600K in the first week, and it featured hits like We Made You and Beautiful. Before we get to Recovery, we must talk about Relapse too. Eminem had written and recorded too many songs, and some didn't make the cut for Relapse, and that was when Relapse 2 came into the picture. And it was intended to be released later in 2009, but due to the poor reception of Relapse, it was scrapped and most of the project is lost, excluding the tracks that were added into Recovery. Recovery was released on June 18th, 2010. The album was leaded by the single Not Afraid. Recovery sold over 700K in the first week. Recovery became the best-selling rap album of 2010 and the best-selling album of the year as well. Other hits from Recovery include Love the Way You Lie featuring Rihanna and No Love featuring Lil Wayne. Recovery was most definitely a critical and commercial success. Despite that, some Eminem fans didn't like it due to the more poppy sound and the overall feel of the album or just cringy songs in general. Earlier, I didn't talk about the D12 album because I personally just forgot. So just in case you won't give me for that, I'm missing something else this time, okay? In between Recovery and the Marshall Mathers LP 2, Eminem and Royce da 5'9" made an EP called Bad Meets Evil, Hell the Sequel. And it had amazing songs. Some that were in the the EP, included was Fast Lane and Lighters with Bruno Mars. April 2012, it was announced that a new Eminem album began production. This later became the Marshall Mathers LP 2, which featured hit songs like Berserk, Revival, Rap God, and The Monster featuring Rihanna. The album opened up its first week with nearly 800,000 copies sold. Here's the rumor that I heard, so take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, the Marshall Mathers LP 2 could have opened up with nearly 1 million copies sold, but since Billboard didn't count streams at the time, it wasn't able to happen. But yeah, just take that with a grain of salt because it's not actually confirmed. After the release of the Marshall Mathers LP 2, Eminem did Rapture 2014 and did the Monster Tour with Rihanna. He was also preparing to write and produce songs for Southpaw, in which he was supposed to star in but wasn't able to. After that, Eminem pretty much vanished from the public, and so in 2016, Eminem made a surprise appearance at Drake's show in Detroit and performed his verse for Forever. After that, Eminem was not seen again for the rest of the year. 2017, okay? And Revival, basically, okay? So, before Eminem released Revival, he had to make many public appearances. However, pictures of him early in the year got leaked. Then, in June 2017, a picture of him with a beard, Kendrick Lamar, and Dr. Dre got posted, and it completely shattered the internet. After a quite eventful 2017, Eminem basically destroyed his career. Many people weren't feeling this Eminem because of two main reasons. One, the BET Hip Hop Awards Freestyle Cypher. Please note that politics is something that we may not talk about much on this show, but for this take, we will briefly touch upon them. The 2017 BET Hip Hop Awards Freestyle Cypher with Eminem, the one that changed his career. In his freestyle, Eminem fit into cringe bars, his political stance, and just an overall weird, awkward freestyle. This caused some Eminem fans who supported the party to show their displeasure from it. To number 2, Revival. This is considered Eminem's worst album to date due to cringe lyrics, production, political theme, voice flow. It was hated like a failed fast food menu item, and it far from tainted his career. It destroyed his career. However, since then, he was able to slightly recover. And as you may guess, Revival was poorly received, and it wasn't as commercially successful as the March Madness LP 2. Kamikaze. After months of keeping silence, Eminem began writing a response song, which ended up turning into an album. Kamikaze was born through this period of frustration for Eminem. Kamikaze had many disses toward Joe Budden, Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, and so many others. Kamikaze was the prize album and it sold over 430K in its opening week, and it did help Eminem's career by a little bit. Music to be Murdered By. So on January 17, 2020, Eminem surprised released another album, and it was called Music to be Murdered By, and it sold over 200K in the first week. The first single was Darkness. The video was also released that day. The hit of the album was Godzilla, featuring the late Juice WRLD. Godzilla became Eminem's fastest song, and then a side beat to the album came out in December 2020, which had Nat, the biggest track from side B. Before we wrap this up, Eminem had pretty much went MIA again, but has made public appearances in 2022 and several more in 2023. He performed at the Super Bowl and got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022. He walked Terrence Crawford to the ring and did a surprise appearance with Ed Sheeran and 50 Cent in 2023, and fans are still waiting for that album to release. But whatever Eminem does next in his career, there's always going to be people who are waiting.